The twin suns of Kepler Prime blazed mercilessly overhead as Captain Marcus Rivera guided his modified cargo vessel through the atmosphere. His ship, the Wandering Star, touched down near the skeletal remains of Research Station Omega-7 with a soft thud that sent clouds of golden dust swirling around the landing struts. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow and checked his environmental readings. One more time before powering down the engines, another routine salvage job, he thought to himself as he pulled on his protective suit. The abandoned stations scattered across. This sector often held valuable technology or rare minerals that could fetch a decent price in the outer rim markets. At 42 years old, Marcus had been running these kinds of operations for nearly 2 decades, ever since he left his position in the Colonial Defense Force. The heat struck him like a physical blow as he stepped outside, even through his suit's cooling systems. The research station loomed before him like a monument to failed dreams. Its solar collectors cracked and twisted, its communication arrays bent at impossible angles. Marcus activated his scanner and began walking toward the main entrance, his boots leaving deep prints in the soft sand as he approached the airlock. A flicker of movement in his peripheral vision made him freeze. His hand moved instinctively to the pulse pistol at his hip as he turned slowly toward the source. There, pressed against the shadowed wall of a maintenance shed, was a figure wrapped in tattered fabric. Marcus could see the distinctive blue tint of alien skin beneath the makeshift covering. Easy there. Marcus called out softly, raising his free hand in a gesture of peace. I am not here to hurt anyone, just looking for salvage. The figure stirred, and Marcus caught sight of large, luminous eyes filled with fear and exhaustion. It was clearly a female of some species he did not immediately recognize, and she appeared to be heavily pregnant. She clutched her swollen belly protectively as she struggled to sit up straighter against the wall. Please, a voice whispered directly into his mind, startling him. The telepathic contact felt gentle but desperate. I need help. They are coming. For my children? Marcus blinked in surprise. Telepathic aliens were rare, and most species that possessed such abilities were highly sought after by various galactic organizations. He lowered his weapon completely and took a cautious step closer, removing his helmet so she could see his face clearly. My name is Marcus, he said aloud. Who is coming for you? The alien woman pushed back her hood, revealing features that were both exotic and somehow familiar. Her skin was a deep azure blue, marked with intricate silver patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Her hair was long and white as starlight, and her eyes held an ancient wisdom despite her apparent youth. I am Zara, of the Nexari people, she replied telepathically. The consortium seeks to capture my unborn children. They believe my offspring will possess abilities that can be weaponized. I have been hiding here for days, but their search ships grow closer, as if summoned by her words. The distant rumble of approaching engines echoed across the desert. Marcus looked up to see 3 black vessels descending through the atmosphere, their sleek forms cutting through the heat shimmer like predatory birds. We need to move now, Marcus said urgently, extending his hand to help Zara to her feet. Can you make it to my ship? Zara nodded and grasped his hand. The moment their skin made contact, Marcus felt a warm sensation flow through him. As if every cell in his body had suddenly awakened, their eyes met, and in that instant, something profound passed between them. It was more than mere attraction, more than simple compassion. It felt like recognition, as if they had been searching for each other across the vast emptiness of space. Together they ran across the desert toward the Wandering Star, Zara moving with surprising grace despite her condition. Behind them, the consortium ships touched down and began disgorging armed soldiers in black combat armor. Pulse rifle fire erupted around them, sending up sprays of superheated sand. Marcus helped Zara up the boarding ramp and sealed the airlock behind them. He raced to the cockpit while she strapped herself into the co-pilot seat, her breathing labored but determined. The engines roared to life, just as the first soldiers reached the ship. Hold on, Marcus warned as he pulled back on the control yoke. The Wandering Star lifted off with a violent lurch, climbing rapidly toward the safety of space. More consortium vessels waited in orbit, but Marcus had dealt with corporate hunters before. He knew these old mining routes like the back of his hand. As they fled through the asteroid field that ringed the system, Marcus glanced over at Zara. She had placed one hand on her belly and was humming softly, a melody that seemed to resonate through the ship's hull itself. Despite the danger, despite the uncertainty of what lay ahead, Marcus felt something he had not experienced in years. He felt like he had found his purpose. The hidden moon base appeared on their sensors like a ghost materializing from the void. Marcus had discovered this abandoned mining facility years ago during one of his more questionable smuggling runs, and he had been using it as a safe house. Ever since, the Wandering Star docked with practiced ease in the old cargo bay, and Marcus quickly activated the base's life support systems. Zara moved slowly through the corridors, one hand trailing along the metal walls, as if drawing comfort from their solidity. Marcus watched her with growing concern as she paused frequently to catch her breath. Her pregnancy was clearly more advanced than he had initially realized. "Here," Marcus said gently, guiding her to the small medical bay he had set up in one of the former offices. "Let me check you over properly," Zara settled onto the examination table with visible relief. Up close, Marcus could see the exhaustion etched in her features, the way her silver markings had dimmed from their earlier brilliance. She looked fragile and ethereal, like a creature made of moonlight and dreams. "How long until?" he began, then stopped, unsure how to phrase the question delicately. "Soon," Zara replied telepathically, a soft smile touching her lips. "Perhaps days, perhaps hours." Nexari pregnancies are difficult to predict, especially when the children are special as mine will be. Marcus busied himself with the medical scanner, trying to ignore the way his pulse quickened every time she looked at him. The readings were unlike anything in his database, showing energy patterns that defied human understanding of biology. Whatever was growing inside Zara was definitely not ordinary. Over the next few days, they settled into a comfortable routine. Marcus would wake early to check the perimeter sensors and prepare simple meals from his emergency supplies. Zara spent her time in meditation, her hands resting on her belly as she communicated with her unborn children. Sometimes Marcus would catch fragments of their telepathic conversations, feelings of love and protection that made his chest tight with emotions he could not name. "Tell me about your people," Marcus asked, one evening as they sat together in the observation lounge. Watching the stars wheel slowly past the reinforced windows, Zara was quiet for a long moment, her head resting against his shoulder in a gesture that had become natural between them. "The Nexari were once a proud civilization," she began, her mental voice tinged with sadness. "We lived in harmony with the cosmic energies that flowed through all living things. But the Great War scattered us across the galaxy, and now we are few." Marcus felt her grief as if it were his own. "What made the consortium target you specifically?" "My children carry the genetic memory of our entire race," she explained. "They will be born with abilities that could restore our people or, in the wrong hands, be used to control others. The consortium wants to harvest that power for themselves." That night, as Zara rested in the small quarters Marcus had prepared for her, he found himself standing guard outside her door. Not because he expected an attack, but because he felt an overwhelming need to protect her. Somewhere along the way, his feelings had evolved beyond mere compassion into something deeper and more complex. He was falling in love with an alien woman carrying children that were not his, and the realization should have terrified him instead. It felt like the most natural thing in the universe. The next morning, Marcus woke to find Zara sitting in the hydroponics bay, her hands pressed against the viewing port that looked out into space. Tears traced silver paths down her blue cheeks. "What is it?" Marcus asked. Settling beside her on the bench, "I can feel them," she whispered aloud, her voice carrying a musical quality he had never heard before. "My children, they're afraid. They know the danger we face, and they worry about the burden their existence will place on others." Marcus reached out and gently took her hand in his. "Tell them they have nothing to fear," he said firmly. "Tell them that as long as I draw breath, no harm will come to any of you." Zara turned to look at him, her luminous eyes wide with surprise and something that might have been hope. "You would do this? Protect children who are not your blood? defend a woman of an alien species. Marcus brought her hand to his lips and pressed a soft kiss against her palm, marveling at the way her skin seemed to shimmer at his touch. "Zara," he said quietly, "in the past few days, you and your children have become more precious to me than anything else in this galaxy. I do not fully understand what is happening between us, but I know that I want to be part of your lives. Zara." Single quotes. Mental barriers suddenly dropped completely, and Marcus was flooded with the depth of her feelings for him. Love, gratitude, desire, and hope all swirled together in a symphony of emotion that left him breathless. She leaned forward and kissed him softly, her lips tasting of stardust and dreams. When they broke apart, Marcus could feel two small presences brushing against his consciousness. The babies were somehow aware of the bond forming between their parents, and they were reaching out to include him in their family circle. For the first time in years, Marcus Rivera felt truly home. The first contraction struck Zara just before dawn, doubling her over as she tried to rise from the sleeping platform. Marcus was instantly awake, his hand finding hers in the dim light of the quarters they now shared. He had been expecting this moment for days, watching for signs as Zara's condition progressed. But nothing could have prepared him for the intensity he felt through their growing telepathic connection. "It is time," Zara whispered, both aloud and in his mind, her voice strained. But filled with anticipation, Marcus helped her to the medical bay, his hands trembling slightly as he activated all the monitoring equipment. He had downloaded every piece of information available about Nexari physiology, but most of it was theoretical. They would be navigating uncharted territory together. The labor progressed quickly, far faster than human births from what Marcus remembered from his medical training. Zara's silver markings blazed with increasing brightness as each wave of contractions swept through her body. The energy readings on his scanner spiked beyond the instrument's ability to measure. Through their mental link, Marcus could feel everything she experienced. The pain, yes, but also an overwhelming sense of joy and purpose. These children had been wanted, planned for, dreamed about for longer than he could imagine. They represented hope for an entire species hovering on the edge of extinction. "Breathe with me," Marcus whispered, taking Zara's hand and synchronizing his breathing with hers. The technique seemed to help, their shared rhythm creating a calming influence that steadied her through the most difficult moments. As the final stage approached, the very air around them began to shimmer with barely visible energy. Marcus could feel the presence of the unborn children more strongly now, their consciousness touching his mind with curiosity and trust. They knew he was there, knew he would protect them, and that knowledge filled him with a fierce determination he had never experienced before. The first baby arrived in a rush of movement and light. Marcus caught the small form in his hands, marveling at the perfect blue skin, marked with intricate silver patterns that seemed to pulse with their own inner radiance. The child opened eyes that held the depth of ancient oceans and looked directly at him with an awareness that took his breath away. "Kale," Zara whispered telepathically, her voice filled with love and exhaustion. "His name is Kale." Before Marcus could fully process the miracle he held in his hands, the second child made their appearance. This one was smaller, but radiated an energy that made the monitoring equipment flicker and spark. Her silver markings were more elaborate than her brother's, forming complex geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Nova," Zara murmured as Marcus gently cleaned and wrapped the second baby. "Our little star," with both infants cleaned and resting on Zara's chest, Marcus finally allowed himself to breathe fully. The medical readings had stabilized, showing all three of his new family members in good health. He started to turn away too. Update his log when something extraordinary happened. Both babies turned their heads to look at him simultaneously, their large eyes focusing with impossible precision for newborns. Marcus felt their combined consciousness touch his mind. Not as the gentle brushes he had experienced during the pregnancy, but as a full telepathic communication. "Protector," came a voice that was somehow both children speaking as one. "Father of our choosing, guardian of our path." Marcus sank into the chair beside the medical bed, overwhelmed by the intensity of their mental touch. He had expected to care for these children, to help raise them, but this was something far more profound. They were claiming him as family in a way that transcended species or biology. Zara smiled up at him, her eyes bright with tears of joy and relief. "They have chosen you," she said softly. "In Nexari culture, this is the highest honor. You're no longer just a protector, Marcus. You're truly their father." As if in response to her words, both babies reached out their tiny hands toward him. Marcus extended his finger to touch their palms. The contact sent a surge of warmth and belonging through his entire being. The bond that formed in that moment was deeper than adoption, stronger than marriage, more permanent than any legal document. He was no longer Captain Marcus Rivera, smuggler and drifter. He was father, protector, guardian to two miraculous beings who carried the hopes of their entire race. And as he looked down at Zara holding their children, her face radiant with love and trust, Marcus knew that his wandering days were over. He had found his family among the stars, and he would do whatever it took to keep them safe. The twins settled into peaceful sleep, their soft breathing the only sound in the medical bay. Outside the viewport, the cosmos stretched endlessly in all directions. But Marcus no longer felt lost in its vastness. He was exactly where he belonged, holding his chosen family close while the universe spun around them. And for the first time in his adult life, Captain Marcus Rivera was completely, utterly at peace. The joy of their moment together was interrupted by proximity alarms echoing through the base. Someone had found their sanctuary, and Marcus had a terrible suspicion about who it might be. The consortium fleet materialized from hyperspace like a swarm of metallic locusts, their black hulls bristling with weapons and sensor arrays. Marcus watched from the base's command center as 12 attack vessels took up positions around the small moon, effectively cutting off any escape routes. At the center of the formation, a massive dreadnought slowly rotated to bring its main guns to bear on their hiding place. "Commander Voss wants to negotiate," came the transmission across all frequencies. "Surrender the Nexari female and her offspring, and you will be permitted to depart unharmed." Marcus recognized the voice from wanted bulletins he had seen in various spaceports. Commander Eric Voss was the consortium's top acquisition specialist. Known for his ruthless efficiency in capturing rare specimens for their research programs, the fact that they had sent him personally meant they considered Zara and the twins extremely valuable. "Like hell," Marcus growled, shutting off the communication channel. In the medical bay, Zara was already on her feet, despite having given birth less than 24 hours earlier. She moved with fluid grace, the silver patterns on her skin pulsing with increasing intensity as her protective instincts activated.
Oh.
The twins lay in their improvised cradles, seemingly unaware of the danger surrounding them, but Marcus could feel their presence in his mind growing stronger. "They want to turn our children into weapons," Zara said, her mental voice tight with anger and fear. "The consortium believes they can extract and replicate their abilities, use them to control entire populations." Marcus was already suiting up in the combat armor he kept for emergencies, checking the charge on his pulse rifle and securing extra power cells. "Not if I have anything to say about it," he replied grimly. The first attack came without warning. Brilliant lance beams struck the moon's surface, sending shockwaves through the old mining tunnels. Marcus felt rather than heard several sections collapse, sealing off their rear exit routes. The consortium was being thorough, making sure their quarry had nowhere to run. "Stay with the children," Marcus told Zara as he headed for the defensive positions he had prepared over the years. Automated turrets rose from concealed positions around the base, their targeting systems already locked onto the circling attack ships. But it might buy them time. The battle erupted in earnest as consortium ground forces began landing in armored shuttles. Marcus controlled the base's defenses from the central hub, coordinating the automated systems while providing covering fire for the most vulnerable approaches. His smuggling experience had taught him to always have an escape plan, but he had never expected to be defending a family through the base's communication system. He could hear Zara humming to the twins, her melodic voice somehow carrying clearly despite the chaos of combat. The sound gave him strength, reminding him exactly what he was fighting for. These were not just random aliens he had rescued. They were his family, and he would protect them with his last breath. The first wave of consortium soldiers breached the outer perimeter, their powered armor allowing them to shrug off the defensive turret's fire. Marcus abandoned the command center and moved to intercept them directly, his rifle spitting concentrated energy bolts with deadly precision. Years of combat experience took over, muscle memory guiding him through tactical movements he had not used since his military days, but there were too many of them, and they kept coming. For every soldier Marcus dropped, 2 more took their place. Gradually, inevitably, they pushed deeper into the base. Marcus fell back toward the medical bay, leaving improvised traps and sealed bulkheads in his wake. But he knew it was only a matter of time. That was when Zara surprised him, as the consortium forces reached the corridor outside the medical bay. Zara emerged with both twins in her arms. Her entire body was glowing with silver light, the patterns on her skin moving like living things. The babies were awake now, their own markings beginning to show the same luminous quality. "Enough," Yura said, and her voice carried through the entire base without any technological amplification. The telepathic force behind the word sent several soldiers staggering backward, their weapons falling from nerveless fingers. "You want my children," she continued, taking a step forward. The twins reached out their tiny hands, and Marcus felt power building around them like a gathering storm. Then come and face what they are truly capable of. What happened next defied everything Marcus knew about physics and combat. Waves of pure, telepathic energy rolled outward from the small family, washing over the consortium forces like an invisible tsunami. Soldiers collapsed, their minds overwhelmed by visions of peace and understanding that their violent conditioning could not process. Even Commander Voss, watching from his dreadnought in orbit, fell back from his command console as the psychic wave reached his ship. Across his entire fleet, weapons powered down and engines went offline as the crews struggled to comprehend what they had just experienced. In the sudden silence that followed, the twins looked up at Marcus with their ancient, knowing eyes. They had protected their family just as he had protected them. The bond between them all had become something greater than the sum of its parts. A connection that transcended individual ability or species loyalty. Marcus gathered his family close, understanding finally that their strength lay not in running or hiding, but in standing together. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one. 6 months after the confrontation at the moon base, Marcus stood on the observation deck of their new home, watching Zara attend to the growing garden in the biodome below. The terraformed world of Haven's Rest had welcomed them with open arms. Once word spread about the defeat of the consortium fleet, the Nexari refugees who had been scattered across the galaxy were slowly beginning to gather here, drawn by the hope that Zara's children represented. The twins had grown remarkably in their first half-year of life. Kale showed signs of incredible empathic abilities, able to sense the emotional states of every living creature within miles. Nova demonstrated an affinity for energy, manipulation that left their simple home's power systems working at impossible efficiency levels. Both children had developed an unshakable attachment to Marcus that went far beyond normal infant bonding. Kale's voice whispered in his mind, though the baby had not yet learned to speak aloud. "Hungry. Coming, little one," Marcus replied telepathically. The mental communication now as natural as breathing. Zara looked up as he approached, her smile bright enough to rival the system's twin suns. She had regained her full strength and then some, her silver markings now showing complex new patterns that seemed to incorporate elements of human neural structure. Their growing relationship had changed them both in ways neither had anticipated. "The children are developing faster than normal Nexari infants," she observed, lifting Nova from her playmat. "I believe it is because of their connection to you. They are learning to bridge our two species in ways I never imagined possible." Marcus took Kale in his arms, marveling as always at the trust in those ancient eyes. The consortium had never returned. After their defeat, intelligence reports suggested they were dealing with massive defections throughout their military structure. Apparently, experiencing the twins' telepathic influence had awakened something in the soldiers' minds that could not be easily suppressed. "We I've been invited to address the Galactic Council next month, Zara continued, moving closer until they stood together as a family unit. They want to hear about what happened, about what our children might mean for interspecies relations. Marcus considered this carefully. The Galactic Council was notorious for its bureaucracy and political maneuvering, but having official recognition might provide better protection for the growing Nexari community on Haven's Rest. And if Kale and Nova could help other species understand each other better, maybe their gifts could prevent future conflicts rather than cause them? What do you think? He asked Zara, then extended the question telepathically to include the twins. Should we share our story with the galaxy? The answer came as a wave of agreement from all three of his family members, accompanied by images of peace and understanding spreading from world to world. The twins might be infants, but their vision of the future was remarkably sophisticated and universally hopeful. That evening, as they sat together watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Marcus reflected on how completely his life had changed. A year ago, he had been a drifting smuggler with no real purpose beyond his next paycheck. Now he was a father to two miraculous children, partner to an extraordinary woman, an inadvertent founder of what might become a new model for galactic civilization. Zara rested her head against his shoulder, her thoughts flowing gently through their connection. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you had simply walked past that research station, she mused. If you had decided the risk was too great and left us there. Marcus tightened his arms around his family, feeling the warm weight of sleeping infants against his chest. But I did not walk past, he replied softly. Something greater than chance brought us together that day. Maybe it was destiny. Maybe it was the universe finally giving me what I needed most. As if in response to his words, both twins stirred slightly, their combined consciousness brushing against his mind with sleepy contentment. In that touch, Marcus felt not just their love for him, but glimpses of the future they would build together. A future where different species could truly understand each other, where the barriers between worlds became bridges instead of walls. The wandering star sat in the nearby spaceport, ready for whatever journeys lay ahead. But Marcus no longer felt the urge to run toward distant horizons. He had found something worth staying for, worth building with, worth protecting with everything he had. His family among the stars had become his anchor, his purpose, and his greatest adventure all rolled into one. And as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Captain Marcus Rivera knew with absolute certainty that the best part of their story was just beginning. The twins sighed in their sleep, dreaming of tomorrow's possibilities, while their parents planned for a future filled with love, wonder, and the endless potential of hearts connected across the vast expanse of space.